Hello, I'm Brigantia, Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Monday, and welcome back to our Goddess Brighid series. We're going to be discussing her role with the sacred flame. Now, as we established last week, the Celtic goddess Brighid is also a fire goddess. But what is fire when we're thinking about it in the spiritual, the magical context, as well as, the everyday life kind of context? But first, fire is transformation. We see this with cooking and baking. We are transforming raw ingredients into the prepared dishes, and the heat is what allows that process to actually take place. Fire is also seen with crafting. The fire heat is often a necessary component in building things. This is most obvious in crafts like, arts and crafts really, such as glass blowing, but also really with a lot of different things. Any kind of tools, there's usually some application of heat. And fire is also a fuel for the literal transportation that allows us to go from point A to point B, but also metaphorically. Fire is an inner fuel of our spirit. It allows us to have the ability to, garner up enough motivation to actually get something done. Fire is also inspiration, both the idea and also having the drive to pursue that idea through to fruition. This inspiration refers to creative problem solving. It's about a state of being a visionary, and a visionary is someone who is able to see things as they are and then see things how they might be, and have a few ideas or principles that might take us from here to over there. Fire is also key in divination. To divine is to tap into the roving and the restless currents of the universe and all of its possibilities, which is all clearly an aspect of metaphorical fire. It can burn away distractions and obstacles so that we can see our way forward. And it's also about seeking wisdom, which adds fuels to our own inner fires. So what about the goddess Brighid's sacred fire? We have three different aspects of this. The first is really the flame of healing. When you think about it in a physical illness, if you have a fever, as long as it's not too out of control, it will burn away the infection. So the fire is essentially working its way through you so that you can be healed. Also, in in the days before antibiotics and other useful medical tools, the searing of wounds was a way to prevent infections, which of course is an application of heat and fire. Healing brews and potions often involve heat to prepare them. And oftentimes, though, this is something that we might do in addition to using traditional medicine, also adding that magical aspect to it as well to kind of, put those odds in our favor. If we're feeling ill, use every tool at our disposal to improve our situation. And then, of course, the flame of healing can also refer to elemental meditations that can help us use fire in a metaphorical sense to rebalance our own energies. If we are feeling too watery and emotional, the fire can heat that up and it can dry us up a little bit to where we are able to act again. If we're, too distracted and our heads are in the clouds, the fire can bring us down, warm up that heat, and get us to see things in a more well-rounded perspective rather than just cold, hard logic or just being, distracted and drifting. Or if we're just too rigid, we're like this solid ground and we're rock and nothing can shift us, the fire can actually help break that up and make us able to till our own inner soil in a way. So fire does play a huge role with that. The second aspect of Brighid's flame is the flame of creativity. And of course, this begins with having an idea. And then it brings with making a plan to try to bring that idea into the physical world. And then it ends with the effort of actually doing something. This isn't, the fire of contemplation. This is the fire of, I made something. I have manifested something. And then the third aspect of her flame is the flame of the hearth and the smithy. Obviously, with the hearth, the warming of the home, and representing the comforts of having the family gathered around the fire, that emotional warmth as well as the physical warmth all tied into one. And then keep in mind that the hearth was the original kitchen in homes. And, the cooking that was done over that hearth helped sustain people for the work that they did. Then, of course, with the smithy, that was obviously a place of work, and the flames involved in that smithy that aided the making of everyday tools, as well as making weapons that were suitable for defense or war when the situation called for it. So a lot of different areas of life are covered just by the goddess Brighid's association with this one element. So how can we connect to all of this? Because I want to make sure that we're always thinking about how can we use this information? How can we make it practical? First is making threefold offerings of fire. Having an offering of an idea, approaching this goddess and saying, I have this vision, or I'm setting this magical intention into motion with this spell. Then we have practical actions. We're essentially doing that which is within our power to make something happen, to work in concert with any spell work we might did, or just to show her that we're willing to do the work. We're willing to put forth the effort in order to bring this. And then, of course, the offering of fire magic. This could be literal, using candles for candle work, but it could also just be about using magic in general, because it is the element of fire within magic that gives the drive to release and go forth, and then to have the energy to manifest into the universe. And giving all of these things to this particular goddess, it shows that we are wanting to learn the lessons and learn more about the mysteries of the element fire itself, because we're already taking those steps. And, they might be our very first steps, little teeny tiny baby steps. That's fine. The goddess Brighid is quite well known within the community of being a relatively easy goddess to work with, someone who's very kind, very patient, someone who is understanding that people tend to learn and work at their own pace. So by showing her that you are doing the work, that's an act of good faith, and it's also showing that you are honoring things that are important to her, which is namely the doing. Another way to connect with her and really with the element of fire is to cultivate courage, to build ourselves up psychologically, to resolve within ourselves that we have what it takes in order to face difficult challenges, because we're all going to be struggling with something in life, some of us more than others. But if we make up our minds ahead of time of, I'm going to overcome, I'm going to do something, I'm not going to just I'm not going to be pre-defeated before I even try. I'm going to give it a go. That goes a long way, because, again, this is a goddess who is very much about the doing. The second thing we might do to cultivate courage is to get into the habit of speaking truthfully about our convictions, even if it's unpopular. And I realize for some people, because of different personality types, this is a very difficult thing to do. They might think, oh, I don't really want to cause a fuss. I don't want the backlash. I don't want to deal. I don't want to deal. I don't want to have to be brave. That's what it is. So when we overcome that psychological hurdle and say, you know what, I'm simply going to say what I need to say. And if someone is thoroughly upset about that, well, then, maybe they weren't the right person to be in my circle. Or, maybe I need to be thinking about what this means for my community, because people are rejecting this idea out of hand, especially if you've got a really solid case. But just being honest about it and having enough of a spine and a backbone to do that, even if you're facing disapproval, that counts. That counts for a good deal. And then, of course, a third aspect of this would be to put our ideas into actual practice, even if other people disapprove. That might be something that's very subtle that people don't really notice us doing differently from others, or it could be blindingly obvious. But whatever it is, walk your talk. That is all about courage, and that is a quality that the goddess Brighid does value. And then, of course, focus on the doing, which I've mentioned before in this video, but I do keep coming back to this principle. And in order to focus on the doing, it might help if we just make a list. And then every time we accomplish something on that list, we can have the satisfaction of crossing off the task. And then you have this nice list of crossed off lines, and you can say, I achieved something, I did something, I was in motion. And if there's an obstacle to be overcome, start to brainstorm ways to get around it, over it, through it, and implement those plans and keep at it until you have success. Sometimes we don't necessarily have the right idea to start with about how to deal with a particular obstacle or difficulty, but if we keep chipping away at it and we keep working at it, we will find our way through. But sometimes persistence is called for, and of course that brings us back to the drive of the element of fire. And then, of course, one last thing we could do is to make a goal to achieve at least one useful thing each day, and to build ourselves up until we become this person who is in the habit of taking practical action. And I mention this because even though it might seem like a kind of a small thing to do, because surely most of us do at least one useful thing each day, I'm mentioning it just because I think the lockdowns and the mandates and all of the restrictions we've been dealing with over the past couple of years, it has driven people to a sense of passivity, to a sense of, well, it doesn't make any difference if I do anything or not, or I don't have to, you know, get up and be proactive or do all these other things. I just need to sit on the sofa and wait for instructions. So rejecting that mindset and beginning to re-engage with life, not only would that be healing, but again, it would also be showing this particular goddess that we appreciate the meaning of her work with fire and how she uses it, and that we are wanting to follow that example. And if we show ourselves as willing to actively walk in the pathway of the gods, that is when they are much more likely to turn around, take notice of us, offer us a helping hand so that we can also get ourselves into better spiritual alignment and also achieve our practical goals. So, I hope that was useful to you. If you'd like to carry on the conversation about the goddess Brighid or anything to do with her, please come see us at Blackbird's Brew on Discord. There's a link to join in the description box below. And as always, please subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, like the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.